Hello, welcome back to the Marlea Note and happy summer. In today's video, I want to talk about burnout as a classical musician. Maybe for a lot of you, you're reaching the end of your school year or season, or maybe you're still wrapping it up and finishing out your year. I personally just finished out my season here with the New World Symphony. Around this time of year, generally, I feel exhausted, I'm burnt out, I'm done. And then of course, this year is a little bit different than most, so people may be experiencing a lot of different things right now. If you saw my mental health check-in video, then you've heard a little bit about my personal journey with my own mental health throughout this last year. If you haven't seen it, I'll make sure to link it here for you. But this is kind of like a mental health check-in part 2, and I feel like right now is the perfect time to do that. I also want to put a quick disclaimer in this video. I am not a mental health professional and will only be speaking from my own personal experiences. But I will be leaving a lot of resources down below in the description box, so please be sure to check those out if you need them. So if you're a classical musician and you want to talk all about being burnt out, then just keep watching. So like I mentioned, around this time of year is when I'm feeling burnt out and tired, feeling a little anxious for summer plans, and maybe trying to find ways to re-energize myself because the summers are busy. I play with the Grant Park Orchestra in Chicago, and their season is packed. So I know that around the end of April, beginning of May, I need to find some way to recharge and get ready for an intense summer. And then this last year happened, and while I may not have been playing as much as I'm used to, New World tends to be very intense, lots of rehearsals, lots of programs, and usually I'm preparing for auditions on top of all of that. So by this point in the year, I'm exhausted, but I didn't have all of that this year. While I was still working and we were still performing, I had a lot more time to recover in between performances. So I'm not feeling necessarily burnt out playing-wise, but I'm kind of feeling emotionally burnt out. Plus, my summer season was cut a little bit short. Thankfully, we still get to play, but it's not as long as it usually is. Trust me, I'll still be tired. It's still a lot of work, and we will be playing a lot of programs this summer. But it feels a little bit different this year. So I wanted to make this video because I started thinking about all of the many different cases and scenarios that people might be experiencing right now. Maybe you're having a similar experience to me, where you're maybe not as burnt out playing wise because of the weird schedule and you've not been playing as much as you're used to, but maybe you're really emotionally burnt out and trying to figure out how to motivate yourself to get back into the swing of things for your summer plans. Or maybe your summer plans fell through again. That can be really frustrating and take a toll on your mental health as well. Maybe you are musically burnt out because your schedule has been really intense. Maybe you're in school and you had recitals, orchestra, chamber, lots of things going on that has brought you to a state of being completely burnt out. Plus, you might have summer plans, so you're trying to figure out how to re-energize yourself in between those two things. Or maybe you purposefully left your summer open so that you could really relax and feel refreshed going into the fall season. There's so many different scenarios right now for what people may be feeling and maybe different levels of burnout. So I'd like to talk through a couple of these scenarios and maybe provide some tips for things that I might do to feel refreshed and reinvigorated. Let's talk about one that I'm all too familiar with, which is being musically burnt out. I've experienced this every year since I can remember. Generally in the spring, as you all know, there are so many deadlines, lots of last minute performances, recitals, just things in general that need to be done in order to wrap up your season or your school year, which can be so exhausting. For many years, I would actually just take a complete break going into the summer season because I didn't know any other way to feel refreshed, relaxed, and ready to go into a summer season. I'm actually still working on finding ways to recover from being musically burnt out. My go-to is always to just take a complete break, which I think sometimes is the best option. Sometimes if we're musically and emotionally burnt out, then that generally means that we're physically burnt out, which a lot of times can lead to injuries. If you watched my last mental health check-in video, then you know that I took a very long break last summer, and that was for many reasons. The main reason being my mental health was really not great. So just as an example, like that was the best option for me during that time. And now I'm trying to find ways that I can feel like I'm taking a break, maybe while not taking a break, if that makes sense. So as I'm giving these tips, This is kind of like a brainstorm session for myself to figure out how I can personally, when I am feeling musically burnt out, find ways to feel refreshed and recover without taking that break that I'm used to jumping to. With my experiences, at least from being a student, the spring semester brings a lot of long practice days with recitals and orchestra, chamber, all of the performances that we're trying to get in before the end of the school year happening all at once. I find that I'm practicing long hours during the day. So maybe, future Marley, a good tip would be to simply just shorten your practice days. So instead of me taking a complete break from my instrument, maybe I'll just throw in an hour of maintenance practice. Finding ways that I can keep my chops up but not feel physically exhausted. So that's one way that I feel like physically we can help with burnout. Maybe paired with that would be taking care of your body. So exercising, stretching, making sure that our physically exhausted body is being taken care of. Now, emotional burnout, that kind of ties into my situation because I'm not really feeling physically burnt out from my music making. So these two things I feel like go together. I feel like if you're physically burnt out from playing music, at least for me personally, I'm always emotionally burnt out as well. So I feel like I always have to address both. Right now I'm just emotionally burnt out. So I feel like obviously staying physically in shape is important. I will mostly be addressing my emotional burnout. For me personally, emotional burnout can come from a lot of different things. I probably feel emotionally burnt out right now because of my mental health. So taking time to address our mental health, I think, is really, really important when dealing with burnout. And then at times, emotional burnout for me can come from taking a lot of auditions, playing recitals, a lot of things that require my emotional energy or can be emotionally draining. That can make me incredibly burnt out. I know that preparing for auditions for me has been the most emotionally draining. Rejection is emotionally draining. So yes, I think that that really plays into the burnout that I feel at the end of this season. Unfortunately, of course, we didn't have those this year, so that's not what is contributing to my own emotional burnout right now, but I'm sure in years to come, I will experience that again. So it's always good to figure out how to address that. Something that I'd like to try to address emotional burnout would be to journal. And I know a lot of people journal and I've never done it, but I think that would be a really good way for me to reflect on how I'm feeling. Because a lot of times when I'm experiencing this, I just actually don't know how I'm feeling. I know that I'm tired, and then I've not like sat down and figured out like, why am I tired? Why am I exhausted and feeling drained? And maybe I can like address that. Or maybe I do just need like to take a week and relax. But that's something that I would really like to try, and I encourage you if you'd like to as well. I'll keep you updated on my new journaling journey and experiences. But I know that's been really beneficial for a lot of people, so I'd love to try it. If you watched my Getting Back into Musical Shape video, then you know that I have recently started making goals for myself musically, and I think that that can help with burnout as well. A lot of times my burnout comes because I've just completed a lot of things, so maybe regrouping, figuring out what my new goals are, and the new goals may just be to stretch or do maintenance practice, but I feel like regrouping and kind of figuring out what my next step is might help. Okay, so we've talked about being musically burnt out, both physically and emotionally, and also my situation, which is just being emotionally burnt out, and also mentioned a little bit of how to address those situations. Now I'm going to talk about going into our summer. So for me personally, my spring didn't feel too overwhelming, but my summer I know will be a huge shock. I'm usually used to it because I'm usually always busy. I'm usually always so tired. There's always so much music to learn all the time, and I'm used to it. I feel like I'm trained for that. But I feel like this last year, I'm not ready for that. I'm not used to it, and it's probably gonna be a huge shock to my system. I was talking to my mom about this. It's kind of like first day of school vibes. Like, I'm a little nervous. It's been 2 years since I've been able to play with the orchestra, and I'm kind of nervous for how rigorous I know the schedule is, but obviously I'm so excited. But I think my game plan for right now is to prepare as much as possible prior to my season. Since I'm not musically burnt out from the spring, right now would be a really good time for me to look at our calendar. They just released the calendar and let us know what we're gonna be playing. So now is the perfect time for me to go listen to the music and maybe find all the hard spots for the summer and just start working on them. That way I know that when I'm in the middle of all the chaos, I've put in some time to help alleviate that a little bit. And when I need times to rest and take a break during the summer, I know that I can because I've put in the work prior to the summer. So I think that's gonna be really helpful for me going into this summer, and hopefully for some of you guys if you have a really rigorous summer ahead of you. I am just not used to having a full schedule and am terrified for the shock to my system that that's gonna be. We will be having many updates, I'm sure, during the summer to see how I'm doing. If your spring was really, really intense and your summer is gonna be really, really intense, then maybe my tip would be to do a little bit of a combo of the maintenance practice and practicing ahead. So maybe you shorten down your practice, but maybe are focusing on a lot of the rep that you're playing this summer. If you can't shorten down your practice because of the amount of music that you have to prepare, then I would really stress the taking care of yourself physically part. If I'm in a really rigorous practice schedule, I personally like to take at least one day a week off. So maybe making sure to find balance in your day, your practice schedule, taking care of yourself physically, and definitely trying to find some time to rest and relax before your summer season begins. If you had a really crazy spring and fall semester and are going into having a lot of time this summer, then maybe the setting goals part will be really great for you because you have a little bit of time to be able to take that rest that your body might need. You might want to take a week off, or if you don't want to take a week off, maybe you're doing that maintenance practice for a little bit, and then maybe you've set some personal goals for yourself that you'd like to accomplish over the summer. Or maybe this summer is music free, and that's okay too. There are so many options for you, and it's all about finding the one that's best for you. There should never be any shame or guilt in what you feel is the best way for you to spend your time, especially when it's the best thing for yourself and your mental health. But I definitely say setting some goals, whether they're musical or personal or both, for your summer would be really helpful. If you had plans for the summer and they were unfortunately canceled because of COVID restrictions, then definitely the goals will be really helpful for you. Like I mentioned, there is no one right thing to be doing this summer and no one right way to take care of burnout. But these are just a few tips and some things that I have found helpful in the past. I am forever learning about how to take care of myself mentally and physically, so a lot of this stuff is also new for me as well. But since it is May and Mental Health Awareness Month, and we're all getting ready for summer, I thought it was the perfect time to check in with you, with me, and our mental health. If you find any of these tips helpful, or you have other tips of ways that you deal with your own burnout and mental health during this time, please let us know in the comments down below. Be sure to check out the description box for some mental health resources and have a wonderful summer. If you like this video and you like this type of content where we talk about classical musicians and our mental health, then please be sure to like this video, and also don't forget to subscribe and click the little notification bell so that you know every time I come out with a new video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week right here at the Marlea Note.